And we're back here on Fox 59 tonight. I'm Cameron Ridle here with Whitley Yates as we are at the 100-day mark of the President Trump second term in the White House. And a lot has happened, and it is impacting everybody. His poll numbers are way, way down, and everyone is spending way, way more. The president said there were a lot of things that he could fix on day one, including solving the war in Ukraine. That is still going on. He said he could lower the price of eggs. Price of eggs are still up. Gas prices are kind of starting to go down, but the thing that everybody continues to fail to describe is when gas prices are going down, that means people aren't going anywhere, and that is not good. Whitley, in the 100 days, it's been nonstop controversy from this week, arresting judges, arresting college kids on the streets, shutting down departments that are authorized and created by Congress. So much on top of tariffs, on top of deportation, on top of the security, national security issues in the Department of Defense with Pete Hegseth. Um, what has this 100 days been for you?
Oh man, a lot of content.
A lot of content.
A lot of content. I think, to be honest, a lot of people are asking, oh, do people have buyer's remorse for Trump? I don't believe that that is what is happening. Those who voted for Trump understood and knew the plan and knew the assignment. He made an agenda that had about 47 items on it. And he has tackled a lot of those items in his first 100 days. We're actually not used to seeing government and elected officials, specifically in the highest office of the land, work this fast and do what they said that they were going to do.
But let me also add real quick. You said a lot of the people who voted for Trump knew what they were voting for, but it seems
Mhm.
there's a lot of people who voted for Trump and who are now admitting, "Oh, I did not know that that is what I was voting for. I didn't know that that meant I would lose my job at the Department of
Yes.
Education and all these things. I didn't know that my daughter was going to lose funding for her job at her local school." What about that? That's that's not great.
No, and there are a lot of people who were surprised at how the resonance of what he was doing impacted them directly. Because I think when they thought about the policies that he was going to put in place, some of these executive orders and, the Doge department cutting government spending, that it wouldn't impact them. But we have to understand that everything that happens, whether you feel a direct impact or not, is going to impact you. And so I'm very sad. My cousin worked at the Department of Education for almost 15 years and she lost her job. And so it's things like that. And she lost her job after losing her son right
Mm.
before burying him, U.S. Airman Breon Tillman Young. And so it has been a whirlwind. I will say that he has had some wins. His biggest win in his first 100 days is going to come on the heels of deportation and immigration. It was one of the biggest things that he championed when he was running for reelection. And it's one of the things that he's delivered on astronomically. And so people that wanted to see illegal immigration dropped, border crossings dropped, less fentanyl in the country, they're very happy with that, specifically targeting those who have had run ins with the law, violated and broken the law here while also being here without documented papers. So that is his biggest feather in his cap. Now, the tariff talk, the tariff talk. Anytime someone says something is wrong, I blame it on the tariffs. I stub my toe, I say it's the tariffs. We are in a very unique place right now in America where we have the impending tariffs, the tariffs that were set before in his first administration, carried on through the Biden administration, and then the additional tariffs. So the tariffs have tariffs at this point. And so what you're seeing the market do is spend less on US manufactured products, and they are all getting their last minute purchases in from China. GDP numbers are about to come out, and I would suspect that they will look terrible. So, from Biden's last quarter till Trump's first quarter, where I think what you're going to see is the GDP is going to drop significantly because people are buying like boatloads. They're buying ships and containers worth of products and cars and all types of things before those tariffs hit. And what that's doing to American business is it's depreciating what people are purchasing here, and how we're going to make up for that once the tariffs hits are going to be interesting. Amazon just announced that they're going to be listing the tariff increases on amazon.com. So if you usually buy something for $20 and it's now 35, they're going to have the breakdown of what the tariff has done to the price of goods, which is not going to be good for the current Trump administration. So, how they're able to manage how the tariffs impact everyday Americans, the price of goods, when we're seeing the price of goods are not going down already. And these are goods that are produced right here. So, I think that he has a lot more to do when it comes to the economy, as well as when it comes to the market, because we are in a bearish stock market right now. Things are not looking good just across the board because people are unsure of what's next. So, uncertainty creates instability. And when people are feeling unstable, they don't spend their money. They
Well,
save it.
and then it's people who, like I said, I didn't know that that's what I was voting for. When they talk about tariffs, I thought that China was going to have to pay these tariffs, and we've talked on this show. That's not how this works. Tariffs are a tax that you pay when you bring something that is made from outside of the country, and vice versa. If another country is buying something. So if they're buying bananas from the US and taking it to China, then they pay that tax. But that also still does not help uh, the person who was selling American, because now the people who you're selling to in other countries have to think, okay, do I want to buy American and pay that extra tax? And then that's still going to make my price go up. So this tariff talk is trickled all the way down to us here in Indiana. This $2.4 billion deficit that the state now has with its budget shortfall is because the forecast now says Indiana, the crossroads of America, a major trading state, a major manufacturing state, is going to be producing less, and therefore we will have less revenue. And so already we saw that caused cuts in our state's budget at the very last second. There are things that completely are now unfunded. We don't even fully know the full list, but things like our friends over at Public Media, their state budget completely gone because of the budget shortfall, which is because of the tariffs. And so, as you said, you're seeing it everywhere. Yes, Amazon just made that announcement. They're now going to put next to, if you're buying, this is the shipping cost, the tariff tax that you have to pay. Whitley, are people starting to wake up now, do you think?
I think that where we are in painting a full economic picture, we went from COVID and having inflated budgets, having inflationary money, and we had a lot of it. We were printing money like no one's business, and then we go from COVID into the Biden administration, which continued COVID spending, now into the Trump administration with the cuts not only in the budget but also based upon what the tariffs are going to do, how that's going to impact US business, not just small businesses, but large businesses as well. So you had the inflationary COVID spending. Now you have the reactionary Doge cuts coupled with the tariffs, and it is making for the perfect storm. What he wants to do is spur people to buy in America from American manufacturers. The problem is what it looks like people are going to do is they're going to stock up on their foreign manufactured goods and then save their money and not buy American products. So there needs to be something else that is going to spur people to spend. And when people don't feel as though their jobs are safe or that they will be employed in a month or 3 months, etc., they're not going to be spending that money, especially if their price to purchase is higher because they're buying American made products. Now, moving on to some of the functions of the government should be working for us. And people are having a hard time utilizing some of the federal agencies like the IRS. I was just at the IRS office yesterday. People couldn't make appointments because there was no one manning the phones in the federal offices. Good government works for you. I'm a fan of having limited government, but the government that's there should be doing its job. And so there has to be a level of balance created in what's happening in Washington, how it impacts everyday Americans. And I think that's why you're starting to see the sliding scale of Trump's approval rate go down, because it's hitting us in our pockets where it matters most. And I think what they need to do now is kind of round out some of these policies. They need to clearly staff up some of these federal agencies so that the flow of government, while it is less, we're spending less, we get to keep more of our money, more of our tax dollars, but it shouldn't feel, like a great value brand government.
You know, outside of here, I run a business, and uh, I own a fleet of buses that are made in the United States. They are sold here in the United States, but all the parts come from all across the country. And so, as you mentioned, one of the things people are trying to decide, what do we do? How do we get through? Because we've made our budget. So how do we stay in budget? So do we start ordering now so we have stuff on the shelf? Because as you said, okay, the president wants us to buy American. If I need a part for an exhaust system and that part is made in China, that's where I have to get it. To his point, he wants it done in the United States, but building the factory to make said part does not happen overnight. But I literally sometimes may need that part overnight. So, in short, there was the once upon a time there was the viral clip. That's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. To think that we're just going to move everything to the United States in a couple days or in a couple weeks, there will be manufacturing here. This is not uh, great as a business person because I can't project, okay, what our costs are going to be. And I also can't predict the timeline, which is probably even worse than the cost because now I don't know when I'm going to get that part. So now I don't know when that bus is going to be back up in service, let alone what it's going to cost me. And so that's why we're seeing stock market go down because everybody can't predict. They can't make their earnings. We can't try to figure out what is going forward. I wish that they had you with the White House to explain these things because when you explained everything, everything was correct and it was the truth. But they continue to spin these things without giving the full context. And that, too, I think, is why you're seeing places like Amazon, which Jeff Bezos was behind the president at the inauguration and support and has told basically his newspaper to kind of lay off on being so critical. The White House today called Amazon's move a retaliatory a tactic um, that they pretty much say is uncalled for. But I think this seems like Jeff Bezos' way of telling people, hey, this is about to happen, and this is why.
You're right. And your scenario for your business is what many CEOs and large corporations are feeling. You cannot forecast fragility. And that's really the problem. When we have such a fragile market, when we have a fragile manufacturing system, and when we supported globalization, right, and China becoming this manufacturing capital, we saw during COVID, if we had to eat and utilize only what we made in the United States, our shelves would be empty because we haven't been supporting our farmers in a way that would increase more farming and all of these different sectors. It's really interesting because we say we want a transparent government and we say that we want that level of accountability. But when you see a private sector company like Amazon give that level of transparency to its consumers, it's a problem. And we can't say that we want that level of transparency when it comes to our hospital bills and the cost of those types of things. But when they do it for Amazon, when it comes to these tariffs, that we don't want that. No, that is important for consumers to see because they are going to bear the brunt of the cost. And so, them being transparent enough to show everyone shopping on Amazon, the multi billion-dollar company, how tariffs are impacting them will be a driver on how people vote in this next election. I can guarantee it. And so, if Trump and the administration do not want that driver, then they need to go ahead and change that automobile and make sure that the tariffs that they have enacted are not going to be harmful to American citizens.
So let's now talk about deportation. We mentioned it just a little bit.
Mhm.
Um, this has now got international attention because people who are in this country in different various legal status, some of them who are students, some of them who have been undocumented, some of them who've been in the process trying to seek legal status to be here, uh, have been sent out of this country. We're hearing about people whose children are American citizens because they were born here, but now mom is being deported, and so now these American citizens uh, are either have to go with their mom, so they are leaving their country, or they're being taken away from them. It On one hand, the White House is talking about how this all the people that they've sent out who are bad. We're seeing that with the video that's here at the White House, with the signs that have been posted out to say that these are the people who have been deported from the country. At the same time, uh, people are not been given their due process. If these people aren't supposed to be here, there's very few people saying that they should be here without process. There are very few people saying, just kick them out today. There is a process. And so I'm curious to know what you think about the deportation itself. While, yes, you're getting some bad people out of here, but there are good people getting caught up in the mix of this.
Yeah, I am someone who is a pretty staunch believer in making sure that for our country to remain sovereign, then we have to have a secure border and we have to have a process specifically for immigration that works. We have needed for a very long time to reform our immigration process, but that also does not mean that you are allowed to circumvent the process, not go through it, and then live in this country. And so, I feel for the children who did not have a choice because they are bearing the brunt of their parents' decision. And I understand wanting to come to this country and wanting to build a better life for yourself and your family, but there is a way. And I'm saying do not circumvent the process. Come over here, be living here for a decade plus as someone that you know has absolutely no documentation, and then push it back on the United States government to say that it is our problem when you made the choice and the decisions that you make. And so now, if you have to be deported, I would get ready for my entire family to be deported, whether or not my children have citizenship in this country. If you want to continue to raise them, they need to go with you. And because you chose that decision, they then have to live with the consequences of the decision that their parents chose. I do think it is incumbent upon Congress and not President Trump to create a pathway of citizenship that they should be working on right now that allows for this process to go more smoothly. It is quicker and it doesn't take all that it has taken in the past, because I know a lot of people who are on expired visas here
Hmm.
who have filed the correct paperwork and are waiting for court dates.
Hmm.
Not enough courts, not enough judges.
What about those people?
Yeah, I think that there should be a different process for people who have filled out their visa paperwork to be renewed, as well as the TPS status people, which would be a lot of the Haitian community that are in the process, but it hasn't gone through yet. And if the reason it hasn't gone through is not because they filed their paperwork late, but because our judicial system is burdened and just completely overran by what has been happening with immigration, then it's not their fault that we have a system that is flawed and that we cannot take on the amount of cases necessary to be able to process all of these people that we allowed to come here. And so that to me is a completely different situation than someone coming here without accurate or authentic documentation at all.
What do we do in the meantime? Because people are they're getting sent out of here regardless, and now it's getting to where it's a constitutional issue because you have judges telling the Trump administration to stop doing X, Y, and Z, and they are continuing to do it. So now, uh, you mentioned Congress. Congress also has a role. We have three equal branches of government. Um, that all play a check and balance on each other, including the media. Journalism is supposed to be the fourth estate out of the three. And the Trump administration has put a good impact uh, on silencing or neutralizing each one of those. And I can name examples from the judge that was arrested as an example, as propaganda of the illegal immigration situation. We've seen hosts on TV fired from their jobs because their corporate owner has a deal that has to get past the Trump administration and needs approval. And the last thing that President Trump wants us to hear uh, certain journalists on TV continue to criticize him heavily. And then we've also seen in Congress where they have the power to shut down departments. You mentioned you've got a family member who work at the Department of Education. That was created by Congress, and therefore Congress is the one that would have to shut it down. But your cousin is out of a job, um, and he's out of a job by the president who doesn't have the authority apparently to cut him from their job. Everybody has always said we're getting to that slippery slope. We're already on the slippery slope now. We're already going downhill on that slope. Question is, how fast is it going to go and how far are we going to go? What do we do about the checks and balances of this administration?
I spoke about this when the clip came out of the Republican senator from Alaska basically stating that she was afraid to utilize her voice and to speak because she was afraid to be targeted by the current administration, and she just didn't want to be on anyone's bad side. And I think that we have to reevaluate what democracy means. And democracy without any type of dissent is not democracy at all. So it's going to take those that are elected for and by the people to stand up for their constituents, because at the end of the day it is not Trump who will keep those in Congress, it is the constituents. And so making sure that our senators and our congressmen are hopefully meeting with constituents, having town halls, listening to what we want, and then speaking truth to power, even when it's uncomfortable, even in the face of adversity, is what is important. It doesn't matter whose political hit list you are on. When you're representing the people, it should be their voice that permeates and speaks, not yours, or not you attempting to placate or stay in a position of power. It really should be you doing what's best for the people. And so, what we need is Congress to begin speaking truth to power, to begin enacting policies so we're not running the country off of an executive order machine, and that we actually have substantive change in policies that we need. And so, I think there has to be someone courageous enough to utilize their position and to utilize their voice in a way to get things going. But right now, it just seems like we want saucy sound bites and we want to say, you did this and you did that. And we want to talk about the work without doing it.
Is there a world where people not only stop the saucy sound bites and everything, but actually step up and do their job and say, no, uh, Mr. President, you cannot have a third term. No, you cannot violate a judge's order, because I've had these conversations with people who say the president is the president and he has ultimate executive power. And again, that's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. So when the president says that you don't have to vote anymore, I take him at his word that uh, Donald Trump uses he knows TV and he knows media. He knows how to get a message across. Sometimes he may be trying something out to test you to see what the reaction is going to be. And just like with, if you go back to the Michael Beckwith thing, it didn't get as big as you would expect it to when somebody makes those comments, because now it feels like we're just getting into a, well, that's just Beckwith being Beckwith. That's just Trump just being Trump. They're just talking. I don't think that these are folks who are just talking,
Uh,
because
I got to disagree.
you think they're just talking?
No, I'm not gonna say they're just talking, but when Trump said, make when the Christians vote, you won't have to vote again, he
Mhm.
just means that traditionally they don't. So if you come out this time, I'm gonna do the things necessary so that you are not attacked or have issues. So I don't think that he meant that he was gonna stay
But that's not what he
in
said.
for another term. What he said was, "Oh, you won't have to vote again," but he was speaking to a specific group of people when he said that. When we're looking overall at the power that the president has, we have been on the slippery slope before Trump, We were on the slippery slope before Biden. We were on the slippery slope before Trump previously. We were on the slippery slope before Barack as well. We have been going down this path for quite some time. And so I looked at the Biden administration and thought, this is an overreach. The fact that they're imprisoning, political opponents, like this is just the things that were happening seemed crazy. The pardoning of his son. I mean, all of these types of, we've been on this slope. We're consistently going down the slope. We have a system in place of checks and balances already. Why isn't it working? And I think we know the answer. I think people are far more comfortable sitting in their positions of power, in those elected positions, and getting reelected year after year and cycle after cycle. And it is security in the position, and it is security in not finding solutions because you are then still needed. We have insiders that are supposed to be crafting and creating laws that impact the time that we're in right now, but they are acting like outsiders telling us what the issues are when they're supposed to be fixing it. And that has been a massive problem in our political system. It is wholly turned performative. And so when we are now utilizing our platforms to perform and not to actually work, that's why we have this problem. That's why there's no checks and balances, is because everyone is putting on a show.
Well, speaking of putting on a show, we're almost out of time on this one. And so before we go, I'm gonna hit you with something a little lighter that everybody is talking about, totally outside of politics, because we only have like 3 minutes left. But there is politics in football. Everybody is talking about Shador Sanders, son of Deion Sanders, who should have been, everybody thought, first round, maybe second round, but now it's third round going to the Cleveland Browns. But actually, nobody even is talking about who was in the first round or second round. Everybody is talking about Shador Sanders and the prank that was played on him. This prank that has gone very, very wrong with the son of another NFL team coach calling Shador, telling him that you're coming to the team, only to find out that it's a prank. I didn't realize until I saw the video that he received that call during the watch party. Like I thought, maybe it was, they were at dinner or something, but he actually called him while they were waiting for the phone to ring.
I mean,
Nuts.
whew, the NFL has some things that they need to clean up. To say that this wasn't coordinated, I mean, it was clear coordination. And when we think about these types of legacy players, right, where the father played and then they want their son to play, et cetera, the Mannings come to mind, right? Archie, Eli, Peyton. And I think that there is an issue with the way that this was handled. But then when he's at his lowest, and we'll call it his lowest at the draft, right? And you think that you're about to get drafted
Mm-hmm.
only to find out that someone is literally making a mockery of that moment for you, I think is really just a terrible sign. I was happy to see that the Falcons did release an apology and said that they didn't stand behind the behavior that came from one of their coach's sons. I'm glad that Shador did eventually get drafted. That is not the QB room that you want to be in. You don't want to. You got Joe Flacco in front of you. You've got, well, Watts is hurt, so we could just take him off. But you've got four other quarterbacks that are in that room vying for position, vying for that field time. And so it's going to keep Shador on his toes to make sure that he is consistently performing if he wants to actually play. So it will be interesting to see how the Browns are going to use their four quarterbacks that they have in their QB room to build the best team ever. But it was interesting to kind of watch him slip down. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
even Trump tweeted, "This is a mockery. He's great." And when you look at his stats versus like an Eli Manning stats, his stats were better.
Well,
I
I think about all the pressure that he's under because there's a clip of his dad that I was watching, and
Mhm.
he was talking about how when he was in the draft, he was telling somebody that said, we may call you on the second round or something like that, and he said, I'll already be gone by then. And he was. So I also think about the pressure that he's under because he's his dad's son.
Yes.
Now you got all this, and now he's, it's just a lot. So
And I honestly think Deion Sanders has probably a lot to do with why he wasn't picked, if we're going to be honest.
Yep, I was just watching some clips of that this morning of all the things that he said that might have turned a lot of people off about bringing his son onto the team. But nevertheless, he's now been drafted over to the Cleveland Browns. So we wish him all the good luck. Whitley, we're out of time. Thank you so much for coming on to talk politics, to talk a little bit of sports, and get us started for the week here on Fox 59 Tonight. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right, that's going to do it for us. We are back here, same time, same station, same app, same YouTube channel, tomorrow night at 8. I'm Cameron Ridle in Indianapolis at Fox 59 News. Have a great night.